Hi guys, hi, how's it going today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I'm going to do a flashback favorites in which I go over some of my favorite products from many moons ago, and today I'm actually going to be revisiting December of 2017 because it seemed like the thing to do. This was my 5th month on YouTube and was doing favorites and fails every single month still at that point in time, or had just started maybe, I'm not sure. And I think it's interesting. Some of the things that are on here on my favorites list I still actually have in my collection, which is very sad. And some of the things I remember very fondly. And then some of the things I'm like, what was I thinking? That said, thank you so much for joining me today. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. I also work in the beauty industry as a field leader for Ulta Beauty, so I get a lot of education in my position. I like to bring you that education here on this channel, but ultimately I'm just out here talking about makeup because I like to talk about makeup, and I'm assuming if you're here, you probably also like to talk about makeup. So why don't we do that? Why don't we just jump right in? All right, so I went back in the Wayback Machine and pulled out my video from December 2017. Back then I was doing favorites and fails every single month, and I was calling them faves or flops. And I think this might have been one of my very first months of doing this, to be honest, and it's back in the day where I thought you had to have a favorite and I thought you had to have a fail every single month. I don't think I do faves and fails anymore on my channel, except for like I just posted one recently because I haven't done favorites in a very long time. So I'm sitting off to the side here so I can put some pictures in the screen right here for you guys of some of these items because I definitely don't have 90% of these anymore. The first thing I had on my favorites list was the Mario Badescu cucumber spray. I remember this used to be the thing. It was the thing to own a Mario Badescu facial spray. The cucumber one was the one to own. These days, I don't even own, I think I have 3 Mario Badescu facial sprays in my collection that I got in gratis literally 4 years ago. I have not used them. I have zero intention of using them. I don't know why I hold on to them. Probably because I'm a hoarder. Not that they're bad. I'm not saying that they're bad. They're very refreshing for sure. But I literally dumped one out just so that I could have a spray bottle for my makeup brush cleaning spray. So that's how I feel about them. But this one was the one with rose water, and I am definitely absolutely not a lover of rose water, so that's where that is. It pains me that I dumped it out, but at the same time, it's old. It's really old. I should have gotten rid of it years ago if I was going to get rid of it, but yeah. So, I mean, not that they're horrible. They're a great, refreshing facial spray at a really nice, drugstore price point, but they're just not something that I find myself pulling for ever. So, I am even in a place now where I don't even hardly ever pull for setting sprays, and I have to put them into my project pans in order to remind myself to use them. So there's that. The next one was this Amazonian Clay blush in Feisty. This was a blush that I absolutely loved, and I actually put into a project pan and panned in 2018. That was the proudest moment of my life, even though it was just a little tiny guy. It was just a little mini that I think I got in maybe a Sephora birthday reward or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, I loved that blush. That was a beautiful blush. I would probably repurchase that, and I love the Tarte Amazonian Clay blushes. They are great, fantastic blushes. If you're in the market for a blush and have never tried them, I would definitely recommend them. They last all day long. For a powder blush, for a person like me who used to have a problem with blush stain on my face, these days not so much, but They were a nice blush that actually did stay, and they didn't do anything to like exacerbate any kind of like aging that was going on in your skin, whether it be texture or fine lines and wrinkles or whatever it was. And the next item I had on here was the L'Oreal Voluminous Lash Paradise Mascara. I remember this mascara being the dupe for the Too Faced Better Than Sex, if I remember correctly. And I cannot stand Too Faced Better Than Sex mascara, so I'm not sure why I thought that this mascara was amazing. I remember this mascara to be a mascara that flaked all the time, but I think the Too Faced Better Than Sex mascara flaked more. So in terms of loving an item, that one was better for me because it was a drugstore price and it flaked less. But I've found better mascaras since, and this is definitely not one that I would recommend these days. The next was the Tarte Lash Paint Mascara, and this is actually still a mascara that I really, really loved. It had a spiky plastic bristle brush, and I do believe I got it in a BoxyCharm, and it was a wonderful mascara. I remember loving this mascara. It didn't flake on me. I didn't have any problems with smudging with it. It was a really good mascara, and I'd repurchase it for sure. Then I have the Too Faced Peach Perfect Comfort Matte Foundation. Man, this foundation had a stronghold on me for a long time. This was a point in my life where I didn't even like foundation. I wasn't wearing foundation very much because I hated how it felt on my skin. I hated having to put it on with my fingers and had never really gotten into like brush or sponge application at that point in time. Very, very new into makeup. And this foundation was just so nice. It was a matte foundation, but it was a comfort matte. So it felt and looked a lot more natural than it did cakey or foundation-y or makeup-y, if that makes any sense. It also smelled amazing. And it also was in a giant tube. There was like 1.7 ounces of foundation in this tube, and it was on a pumping tube. 1.7 ounces of foundation in this tube, whereas most foundations were like 1 ounce of product for the same price. So I really thought it was amazing. And it was a foundation that I repurchased probably 4 times prior to it going out of business or being discontinued. And when it was discontinued, I was so sad. I remember that was a foundation that I did not want to live without in my collection. The next one was the Covergirl Swimmables eyeliners. Now these are eyeliners that I still have a couple of in my collection. I do believe I have this one, which is Loch Ness, I think. Yes, this one is Loch Ness, and it is like a kind of like a steely blue color. I also have the purple one somewhere in here, which I think is called Pebble Beach or Karen Beach, something along those lines. They're really good eyeliners. I'm really distraught that eyeliner has been in my collection since 2017. That's kind of gross. Maybe I will discontinue use and get rid of it. Because I definitely have more in here that are blue and I don't necessarily need it, and purple and I don't necessarily need it, but I do love these eyeliners. They are really, really great eyeliners. First eyeliner I'd ever come across where it actually went into my waterline and stayed in my waterline, was super easy to apply. No tugging, no budging, no fuss. For sure. I was able to like buff it out if I wanted to, but it also stayed in place, which is what I wanted it to do. I have super watery eyes, so it was really hard for me to find eyeliners that actually stayed in my waterline, but those ones did. So I absolutely love those. I also have IT Cosmetics Brow Power on this. I don't know how long y'all have been around, but I also don't know why this would ever be on a favorites list for me. But it is funny because I think that maybe was my first brow product by IT Cosmetics. Maybe it was my first brow product, period, because again, super new into makeup, hadn't worn anything but eyeliner in the past. This brow product is probably my least favorite on the planet. The product packaging, the component for this product, worst component ever. The brow pencil was nice and waxy, but not stiff enough that it would stay in place. It would go everywhere. I would put it on, and as soon as I started spooling through my brows, it would be all over my forehead, which is whatever. Maybe that was a me issue, but it also broke. Without fail, broke in the component. I think I had 4 of these in my lifetime here on the space, and every single one of them broke. Every single one of them broke every single time. So I just, I just, I don't know why this would ever be on my list, but I mentioned in that video that the component didn't hold together the product very well and that it broke in the component. That must have been my first one. The next thing I have on here is the Cover FX Illuminating Setting Spray. I think this was one of my first adventures into setting spray, and I absolutely loved this setting spray. Towards the end of its lifespan, it actually became a lot more glitter than it was anything else, but while it was in full force, you know, had a lot of life left in it, it was a beautiful setting spray. I at that point in time had been doing a lot more matte on my face, and as a dry skin girl, probably should never have done that, but that just brought so much life back to my face and really set my skin up to look like I had perfected my base and had a nice glowy dewiness about me and youthful appearance without looking like disco ball and without being covered in glitter. It was a beautiful setting spray. I really did like it. I think at one point in time I had decided I was going to repurchase it also and put it on a list of products to repurchase, but I never had another one of them. So I would probably repurchase it though. It was a nice setting spray. But I do have these days a couple of different setting sprays that are really my go-to, like the Urban Decay All Nighter and even the Benefit, you know, Professional Pore Spray being one of my favorites, or my absolute favorite. There's a couple other ones that I would repurchase before I'd repurchase that one, but it was a very nice setting spray to my recollection. And then I had the KVD Shade and Light Contour Palette. Look, I also panned this, I believe, in 2018. I loved this contour palette. This was the contour palette that had like the shades up at the top for highlighting and the shades down at the bottom for like contouring and bronzing your skin, and it was such a wonderful palette for a new person in the makeup scene because I could play with all the shade and light in that palette and kind of perfect the contour, really look at myself from a bronzing and or contouring perspective, figure out what I liked about everything, and at the end of the day I ended up using one of the highlighting powders completely and 2 of the bronzing powders completely, and then took the 2 highlighting powders, which were just matte highlighting powders, and the last bronzing powder, I think, in Franken bronzed them, and it was actually quite beautiful. I ended up putting like a Lisa Frank like component, and because I love the Lisa Frank component and kept it. I mean, it was a product that was in my collection for quite some time, but I did actually pan. This is one of the first palettes I ever panned. The first palette period, I think, the only palette period that I think I've ever panned in my collection. So I really love that. And I got it at like TG Maxx for like $10. It was best $10 I ever spent in my collection. The last thing I have on here is the Jaclyn Hill X Morphe palette. It's right up here. I still have it. It's the first collaboration with Morphe, but it's also, or the first palette collaboration with Morphe, but it's also the first generation of that palette. So it was a vegan formula at that point in time. The new ones that they're putting out are not, from what I understand, a vegan formula anymore, from the same palette structure. And from what I understand, Jaclyn was all up in arms about the fact that they had changed her formula because she helped create the formulas in that palette. That palette also had a stronghold on me for quite some time, and then I realized that Morphe just isn't it as it pertains to eyeshadows. Great for a newbie. I'm not saying they weren't great for me at one point in time, but I still have the palette. it's a palette that will always hold a special place in my heart, I think. But I'm not a fan of Jaclyn Hill. I've never followed her, let alone was following her when I got that palette, or following her now for it to hold a special place in my heart. But it's definitely a palette that I have warm and fuzzy feelings over because it came into my life at the time that this also came into my life. So there's that. With that said, that is it. So there is something on here that I wanted to talk about that I thought was kind of funny, actually. The flop that I had in this video was the Covergirl brow pencil, because when I went to go use that brow pencil, there was absolutely no color to it. I have since used a brow pencil by Covergirl in the past, but I have since used one since pulling this in as a flop. And there's actually quite good pigment to the Covergirl brow pencils. I don't know if it was just from that batch of brow pencil, or if it's because this brow pencil in particular came to me in a haul from eBay that I never should have made, but that I got some, like I got a MAC Stereo Rose blush out of that. That was my favorite blush of all time, is my favorite blush of all time from that. So I'm glad I did, but this brow pencil came from that, and I'm wondering if it was just maybe old. That being said, I've used Covergirl brow pencils in the past and they're fine. Of these products, like I would, there's a handful of them that I would recommend, a handful of them that I still remember fondly and would repurchase if they were still out there. Like I think about that Too Faced Peach Perfect Comfort Matte Foundation. I would probably still purchase that if it was available. But man, some of these things on here, I'm like, why would you ever put this on a favorites list? Why would you ever tell somebody that this was the stuff to buy? This is part of the reason why I don't do favorites anymore. Like, I don't want to influence you guys to spend your money on stuff that I maybe think it's fantastic, but might very well not work for you. And 5 years down the road, am I still going to like it? With that said, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you had fun. What are some products that you can think about, blast from the past products that come to mind that you think were fantastic back in the day, that as you look back at it, you're like, what was I thinking? I would really love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I hope that your summer is treating you all kindly so far. I hope that you and yours are well and safe and healthy and getting along as best you can. And I hope that you are all loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye friends.